So first of all, thanks everyone for being here on this beautiful day. It's an awesome day. I mean, just for a lot of reasons. Of course, groundbreaking for the facility. So we're extremely excited for that. It's been a long time coming, longer for others than me, but we're really excited about it. My son, today is his birthday, so he turns 18 today, and he graduates from high school tomorrow. So, and he's coming to UVA. So that's another reason why today is really, really special to me. But I am excited about the groundbreaking this afternoon. I'm excited for our coaches. I'm excited for our staff. I'm excited for our players, former coaches, former administrators. Just really excited. So. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this year and what has happened, because we've had a great year, and it's been a struggle the last couple of years because of everything that's happened. But, you know, for Swim Dive to win their second national championship in a row was really special. For men's tennis to win a national championship was remarkable. That was a lot of fun. So they're fifth in 10 years, which is crazy, but I was very happy for Todd, for Andres, for their staffs, for the student athletes, for that program, for both programs. So great year in the pool, great year on the tennis courts. For Swim Dive, that was a lot of fun too, a lot of individual national champions, American records, great students. But really across the board, we had a great fall too. You know, women's soccer did really well. Field hockey, I think both made it to the Sweet 16. And so being able to finish up the spring strong is really important for us. And we obviously have some teams still competing, so we're looking forward to closing out the year with them. Academically, we had a great year as well, which is always really important. You know, a highlight for us is that 150 student athletes left the university with a degree this year, and that's why we're here. And so for 150 of our students to walk out of here with a degree this year is, it makes my heart warm, because that's why I do college athletics. So great year in the classroom, some great team and individual performances. So really excited about the momentum, finishing up this year strong, and then the momentum going into next year. Of course, there's a lot happening in college athletics, but I'll leave that to your questions for me. But I'll stop there, Jim, and see if we have questions.
I'm going to let Jeff start.
Hey, Carla, as you mentioned, this day has been a long time coming. I think it's been 3.5 years since the BOV approved the master plan. How much was your patience tested during this process, which included, you know, a global pandemic? And at what point did you know you would be able to break ground in the spring and have it ready in 24?
So the approval was 3.5 years ago, but we started working on it literally day 2. My second day here, we took a tour of the facilities and saw the need. Not just the need for football, but the need for our Olympic sports was profound, and so that's when we started. I always believed it would happen, because that's just kind of the person that I am. I believe that if we had the right people, the right plan, the right vision, that it would happen. And so, has it taken longer than I thought? No. I mean, these things take time, and so I think we're right on track. A lot of people to thank, but did I know it was going to happen and finish in 2024? No, but I hope that it will be done as soon as possible, and I think that's where we are.
Hey, Carl, I was curious if you could share some nuts and bolts kind of with us. Do you have a price tag for the facility, square footage for the facility? And maybe shed some light on, it said a recovery room for optimal performance. What's in a recovery room?
For you and I, a bed probably to sleep. So we are obviously it's a work in progress, but we're happy to get the construction started here now. It's 90,000 square feet. It's an $80 million facility. We've done, I think, an exceptional job during these trying times to have a project of this magnitude, to bring it to a groundbreaking. So we're excited about that. It is not flashy, but it is exactly what we need to compete for championships, and that's what we wanted. So you'll have everything that it should have. So state-of-the-art, sports medicine, which includes everything. Strength and conditioning, coaches' offices, nutrition, the technology to help our players and coaches prepare. That's huge nowadays. I know, as all of you guys know, the technology is a big part of what they do. And so having a place where we can, that's dedicated to helping our coaches prepare our players to compete, we didn't really have that. And so it'll be really important to have it now.
When you looked at the facilities and what you wanted to be built, did you have an influence on other facilities that you toured? How much influence did Tony have once he got on board here as well?
Yeah. So, I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I love touring other facilities and campuses and going to lots of different events. Wherever I go, I tour the facilities. So I was just, at the University of Illinois for men's tennis. I toured their facilities. I just love that because it's good to benchmark and kind of see what's happening across the country. There wasn't one particular facility that we said our facility needs to be modeled after this. But we did try to take the best of what we thought was a good thing at different facilities. And what was the second part?
How much Tony?
Oh, it's Coach Elliott. So we were not finished when we hired him, and so he had a chance to look at the schematic designs and have some influence in that, and he did. There were some small changes, not many, but there were some small changes that we made to accommodate what he thought was really important. Primarily nutrition is really important to him, so we added some nutrition space and redesigned some things there.
Carla, how much does the success you guys have in so-called non-revenue sports impact the giving to something like this project?
Well, the master plan includes all our Olympic sports, so they are going to be direct beneficiaries, and so the donors that care about our Olympic sports have an opportunity to give to the master plan, and they have given, and we hope they continue to give because that's a huge part of what's next. And so I think the success, having a broad-based, successful athletics program helps everyone. And so the success in Olympic sports creates enthusiasm for folks that give to football. The success in football helps for those donors who want to give to the Olympic sports or to scholarships. So I think it all works hand in hand. And it's great for the department. Obviously, it's been a tough 2 years for everybody in college athletics. So the success, it's good for me to see our head coaches have so much joy when our other coaches, when their colleagues win championships. That's been fun to watch.
I'm going to move up these mics here. I get this mic. So
Can't hear me?
performing better.
I'm sorry, what?
Jim, are we starting over from the beginning?
No.
One more, since you talked about the last 2 years. Title IX is coming up on a 50-year anniversary. How much do you think Title IX maybe saved some women's sports? Because you guys, I don't think, cut anything, but a lot of schools had to cut sports for financial reasons. How much do you think Title IX factored into how they made those decisions?
Yeah, so with the anniversary coming up, it's important to a lot of us, and not just women in our industry. It's important across the board. I'm not sitting here but for Title IX. I don't earn a scholarship. There isn't a scholarship for me to have at the University of Georgia but for Title IX and the generosity of donors. And if I don't have that experience, I'm certainly not here. So from a very personal standpoint, I understand the benefits of Title IX. And that's really important to me. And you can ask, anyone on our staff, they will tell you, because leadership starts at the top, is gender equity important? Is Title IX important? Is very important. So I love seeing all of the celebrations, all of the celebrations of the anniversary across the country. I think it's really important. I've got 2 daughters and a son, and it's just as important that my son see those celebrations as my daughters, because that's how we change moving forward.
Do you think it factored into cuts over the last couple of years?
I think that probably, but that's been true since the law was enacted. So the law is meant to shape decision making and behavior, and it has done that, and I think it'll continue to do that.
Is there any extra excitement after seeing the success that the softball team has had within, I think they've had now a season and a half-ish with the shutdowns and all that stuff, but opening that new facility, having that recruiting class come in, and then making the leap they did in conference play and then postseason play? Does that add any extra excitement, knowing how much facilities matter?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's like build it and they will come, right? The recruiting has improved. It was standing room only for a lot of our games at softball. It's the best year in 12 years. Had an opportunity to go to postseason, which is always valuable when you're building a program. So Joe did a tremendous job in a difficult situation prior to the new facility. And then having the new facility and the location of the new facility, did something just happen? and the location of the new facility, I think, is just as important because we get the synergies from baseball and lacrosse and track. And so yes, whenever any of our teams do well, whenever any of our coaches have success, all of us celebrate it.
Carla, 4 years ago, in a very similar setting to this, you sat with us and said, we have a structural problem in football. And you meant facilities, but also support staff and such. Where do you think you are in addressing or even solving that structural problem?
It's been my focus, this last 4 years. And so I feel really good about where we are. Obviously, with the groundbreaking today, that's a huge step. We started an emergency fund not long after I got here for football, and we were able to add positions for strength and conditioning, for recruiting, for nutrition. All of those things are paying dividends now. And so the structure is being repaired. We're not there. We still have a long way to go, but we have made great strides in making sure that we have a healthy football program. And we know, all of us, we know the benefits of a healthy football program.
And does it add to the difficulty of getting that staffing and facilities and funding those when you have such a broad-based program? Because some of your colleagues spend more on football, but they only have 19 sports, and you have 27.
Yeah. So I think it's more difficult and a testament to the people that came before me how well this athletic department has done with so many sports. That's hard to do. It is hard to win championships, not just ACC championships, but national championships across multiple sports. And so it's a great thing, and we just talked about Title IX, and so we're champions of opportunity. And so there are opportunities to be had for all of our student athletes, and they take full advantage of it. They compete hard in the classroom, in their sport, and so for us, we see it as a strength because our alums, our donors love a broad-based, successful athletics program. We just have to add football to that equation.
Where do things stand with fundraising for the Olympic Sports Center, and do you have a target date for groundbreaking and completion of? And also, is there a name for the football center?
Okay. Yeah, help you remember all those. So ideally, we will break ground for the Olympic Sports Complex in spring of '23, with an anticipated completion spring of '25. So, ideally, that's what we're shooting for. That's what we're working toward. And I think you asked about naming opportunities. Yeah, they're not yet. We've got a lot of potential there, but not yet.
Sticking with the naming opportunities, if you go on the website, it looks like people have reserved some, and you can put your name on a lot of different things. How big a part of fundraising is it? Like every donor has something named for them, or what is the structure, I guess, of that?
We try to meet our donors wherever they are and appeal to whatever they want to do, and some of them like naming opportunities and some do not. And so we've had a lot of engagement with those naming opportunities, and we'll continue that. And it'll grow. There'll be, as we complete design for the Olympic Sports Complex, there'll be other naming opportunities that we'll be able to add to the menu. But it's not a focal point, but it is important. And so it's a focal point if you name a building, right? But it is very important because it's very meaningful to donors, and it's across different levels. And so if you can name something for giving what you can give, that's really important.
So I'm curious, does somebody come to you and say, I want the linebackers room, or do they give a donation and then you say, how does that process?
Both ways. We have people who have an affinity for strength and conditioning, or for positions, or and so so they want to give, and so they check out the menu and then they pick one. But we also have donors who have just given, and we've gone to them and have said to them, you've given this amount, would you like to have this named after you? So it happens both ways.
Bronco went before the board of visitors a few years ago and said, you talked about how badly you guys trailed the rest of the conference and facilities. How far do you feel like you lagged behind the rest of the conference, since I'm assuming you've seen all the other facilities? And can you give us an update on how much more that you have to raise to meet the goal for the football facility?
So we've met our fundraising goal for the football facility, not for the master plan in total, because it's huge. There's a lot to do there. And it was last August that Bronco said that we were dead last in the ACC in our facilities. And I've kept him abreast of the progress because he's interested, because he cares. So we are, with the completion of this facility, having made the enhancements we've already made from a personnel standpoint, which was huge, and that helped. We're in a much, much better place. And I think one of the great things about UVA, and one of the things that quite frankly attracted me to UVA, is that every sport has the university to sell in recruiting. You can never underestimate the value of a UVA degree, a UVA education. And so all of our coaches use that, I use that, and so the facilities will enhance that. The personnel additions will enhance that. So we're on our way. We've got a lot to do because no one's standing still.
So we've had about a year with name, image, and likeness, had to come up at some point, right? But how do you feel things have gone with regards to the development of UVA's programs with that, as well as have you noticed any particular changes with regards to donations, which was something a lot of people maybe did some hand-wringing about, whether, that money's going to go to players now instead of to the overall university or facility?
Yeah, the question about limited dollars and where do donors put those dollars was a part of the discussion from the very beginning 3 years ago. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen a problem. I think the donors are learning a lot about what NIL means and what it the impact that it has on athletics programs. They know the impact that facilities have. They know scholarships are important. We're beginning to talk a lot about operational support. So the great thing about it is they get to pick, and we haven't had any issues. It's early in the process, but we haven't had any issues with it.
You said that you never stop with facilities and gazing ahead. Once you're past the Olympic sports complex, what is on your radar? Is Scott Stadium perhaps on your radar as you look into the future facility enhancements?
Yeah, so there's maintenance, and then there's renovation, and then there's new construction. So maintenance is ongoing, and we've got a lot of that to do as well, including at Scott Stadium, including at baseball. Even though there's a new expansion, there's a part that's been there for quite a while. So the maintenance part of it is really, really important. Renovation is important. We'll be renovating parts of McHugh to benefit all of our student athletes, every sport, not just the ones that are in the training grounds, but basketball, baseball, everyone will benefit from the renovations in McHugh. We've got several facilities that we know we're going to have to take a close look. Klockner, field hockey, track and field. So yes, we've got a list.
Is Scott Stadium on that list?
Yeah. Continually, because it's so massive. There's always, something to fix, but we're also looking ahead at potential revenue opportunities.
Hey, Carla. First of all, from a fellow June 2nd birthday, happy birthday.
Oh, awesome! Thank you.
Talking about NIL, I asked Coach Elliott kind of towards the end of the spring, what he envisions with NIL here at UVA. And he said it has to fit kind of the culture.
Yeah.
Kind of coming up on a year into it, have y'all kind of learned more what fits here in regards to NIL?
Yeah, it somehow works itself out. I think that we have the head coaches that we have because they are attracted to who UVA is. And we follow that lead. And so it's really easy. The guidelines that exist are really easy to follow. And so we've done that. We thankfully had a lot of knowledge about where we were headed 3 years ago. And so we began the education process a long time ago. That's going to always be important. Not every student athlete is interested in NIL, and so for those student athletes who are interested, we've tried to meet them where they are and educate them and make sure they're aware of the opportunities. I think we've done a lot to partner with external units related to NIL to help the student athletes. They have benefited from it, and it's been fun to watch, quite frankly, to see some of our student athletes and their entrepreneurial spirit, kind of take the bull by the horns and try to make something where there was nothing. So that's been fun to watch. Obviously, there are problems with the structure and what's happening that we're going to have to work through. So the entire governance structure for college athletics is under review.
You just met at the ACC meetings, and I'm sure NIL is a big topic down there. What were some kind of the things that y'all talked about to kind of, I don't know if reel in is the right word, but just kind of the Wild West that opened up last summer?
Yeah. You'd probably be surprised. We didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about it. We did spend some time talking about it. We talked a lot about football scheduling. So it's going to have to be something that is resolved from many different levels. So we're going to need congressional help because there needs to be a national standard. State, conference, local, universities. We'll have to wait and see what our governance structure looks like. We don't know. I'm not going to try to predict what it's going to look like. I just know it's going to be different, and we're all going to have to adjust. And so we are focused on providing our student athletes with maximum opportunities within the rules, and educating our donors, boosters, collectives, anyone interested in participating in NIL. We're just trying to educate and monitor.
Carla, over here, one more kind of logistics question. As you're building the facility, is anybody displaced? Does everybody kind of stay in their current offices? Is there an opportunity for football to start moving in, or is it not till the job's done? And piggybacking off that, when can you kind of start showing something off to recruits?
Yeah, we've been showing renderings off to recruits, and so today will be a huge step, to actually see the groundbreaking and then to see the work get started. So it is sequenced. If you go all the way back to the building of the training grounds, we had to build that first before we could move people out of U-Haul and Honesty, so that they can have a place to go to. For football, we do have to wait until the facility is complete because they have no place to go. So they'll move in the spring of 25. Once they move in, we can start the renovation of McHugh, because that's where they are, right? The first and second floors. But the new construction for the Olympic Sports Complex, the bulk of the Olympic Sports Complex can start in 23. Does that answer
Yes.
the question?
So you mentioned that you came here 4 years ago, did a tour, and immediately realized that you needed to do all kinds of stuff. What kind of patience tolerance have you had for 4 years, like needing all this money, wanting to get people to understand how urgent this was, and kind of having to just let it happen because it takes time?
Incredible patience is needed, but I believe in what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do something at UVA that I think is really special and that can be a model for college athletics. There's no reason why a premier academic institution cannot thrive in football. No reason. It's harder. It takes more work. But we're up for that challenge. And Coach Elliott is too, which is why he was the successful candidate.
And, there was a kind of horrible news out of JMU with the softball player. Lots of schools have talked about things they're doing with mental health. A lot of people think it's a lot of more smoke and mirrors than actual doing stuff. What kind of attention have you guys paid to that, maybe since that, or, there's 6 kids since March 1st that have killed themselves?
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. So I do this for 3 reasons. I love sports, I love education, and I love young people, right? So that's why we are here, is to develop young people. So for Virginia has had a sports psychologist in-house for years and years, added a second. So we've got 2 sports psychologists in-house. During the last 2 years, we did a lot of meeting with our student athletes because there was a lot going on, a lot of unrest, just a lot. And so we spent more time meeting with them and listening. And one of the things that they felt like was important was more access to counseling from a mental health perspective. And so with all of our budget cuts and all of our hiring freezes and salary freezes, we prioritized mental health. And we've added a 3rd sports psychologist in-house that'll start this summer. And that's as a direct result of the feedback from our student athletes, which is what you have to do. And so it's tragic and it's sad, it's heart-wrenching, like I said, but what we need to do as administrators, as coaches, is to listen and figure out how to address what we're hearing.
Carla, what is UVA doing, if if anything, with academic awards to athletes? With the $5,980
Mm-hmm.
maximum, if you're doing it, how much, who's eligible, when might it start?
Yep. So the Austin Award is really important for a lot of reasons, and our goal is to be able to award that to all of our scholarship student athletes, but it's going to be incremental. So we've done men's and women's basketball already. We did them this year, and so we're working with the foundation to put a plan in place to just incrementally increase that across our scholarship student athletes for now.
And the full
Yes.
amount, and just, you have to be eligible, correct?
So each institution gets to decide the criteria for receiving it. So for us here at UVA, ours is tied to our program, our Pathways program, which is an individualized, it's a customized experiential program for our student athletes. So when they come in as first years, we do these assessments and we figure out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their challenges are, and we customize a program for them individually. And so there are benchmarks that they have to hit in there: leadership, personal development, career development, community engagement, academics. So it's all inclusive of their total experience. It is not simply being eligible. We're encouraging a total experience for our student athletes. And so when they meet those benchmarks, they can access those awards.
You mentioned ACC football scheduling being a hot topic lately. What's kind of the timeline around that? And when you got here and you kind of looked at how the setup was, did you kind of feel like it needed to change so you see more of those crossover games and seeing teams play each other more?
I'm not a fan of changing just to change. Really, if it's necessary, we need to change. And I think that we all agree that we have opportunities to elevate ACC football, and the scheduling is one way to do that. And so that's why we've gone through this process to see what might be best for the ACC, and I'm excited about the possibilities.
I think one of the big models out there was two rivals or pods of three. How do you decide that, I guess, when the time comes, if that was the model that y'all went forward with?
So lots of different models. I think it's always beneficial when universities within a conference play each other more. And so there are several models that allow for that, and I think that's healthy for the players. I think it's healthy for the universities, the communities, fan base to be able to play more. So I think that's a priority. And then being able to enhance our postseason opportunities as a league in football. And so we're taking a hard look at that too.
Actually, following up on that, what is the process do you think is going to be like when it comes to scheduling, as far as figuring out which ACC opponents you'll likely want to face? Is it recruiting footprint comes into mind, or how do you kind of determine that?
So natural rivalries is really important. Geography is important. There are several factors, and everyone has an opinion. We have an opinion. We have a definite opinion, just like the rest of our colleagues in the conference. And so it's a conversation, which is why being collegial is important. But it's a conversation, and it's back and forth. And I think it's been really healthy. We've involved the coaches. The head coaches have been involved in the conversation. Commissioner Phillips has been awesome in his leadership of trying to elevate ACC football. So lots and lots of conversations, but I think it's been really healthy.
Speaking of everyone having an opinion, I'm sure you've heard a little bit about the Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is your sense that the reaction has been about that, and is it causing maybe the NCAA to take another look at it, or what's been kind of the thought process on that? Because it sounds like you guys are pretty in control of what NIL stuff happens around here, but there's some crazy stuff happening out there.
I know enough to know to stay out of other people's business. To say that it's highly charged, it's a highly charged topic. And that's not all bad. Yeah.
The ACC, 2 weeks ago, released its 990 for the 2021 fiscal year, and there was good revenue in large part because Notre Dame was a full member for football that year. But the conference still lags far behind the SEC, where you used to work, and of course the Big Ten. Are you comfortable with where the ACC is financially and in terms of helping each of its institutions?
Yeah. You know, I'm probably perpetually uncomfortable because we want to compete at the highest levels as a football program, as a men's basketball program, as a women's basketball program. You just go down the list. We want to compete at the highest levels. We also want the conference to do well because that helps us. You know, when the ACC does well, Virginia does well. And so, no, I mean, we've got work to do. But that's what makes it fun. It's a big challenge,
How much will the Comcast deal help?
It'll help. It'll help. But, you know, there has to be a demand for viewership. And so we've got to do better as a conference. And we're all up for the challenge, and I think we will.
How much was this facility that you're breaking ground on talked about in the interview process with Tony, with the other candidates? How much did it come up? How specific were your, I don't want to say promises like a negative, but kind of what were you able to tell him that's coming? And then also, you said to me, when I asked about the specifics, you said not flashy, but what we need to compete for championships. Could you go a little deeper on not flashy, because I mentioned to be very nice.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be
There's no slop.
You said that, I didn't. It has, and I am going to forget part of your, because you went around there.
As I do.
Yeah. It will have everything we need to compete for championships. Everything that we'll need. So if you think about 90,000 square feet, okay, and you think about what football programs need, we will have all of that. It's not, there isn't anything secretive. Every new facility has the same thing, just a little bit different, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit smaller. What's really special about our facility is, I think, the efficiency that we are going to create, because everything is right there. You've got the indoor that opens to the natural grass practice fields, and then you'll have the facility with the weight room that opens to the natural grass practice field next door to the indoor. So everything that they need will be in one place. And so I think if you look around the country, that isn't always the case for some facilities. And I think adding the 2 natural grass practice fields first was huge. We really, really needed to do that. And I think that was huge. And then we were able to fill in the gaps around it. And what was the...
And then where I started, I know it seems like a long time ago, but when you were interviewing coaches, ultimately Coach Elliott, what did you talk about with the facility? What were you able to promise?
You know what? So we don't promise. But we did talk about the fact that the new facility was coming. Very transparent about the facilities. I have been since day one, and won't stop with the transparency, because I think that's what helps create strong programs, is the transparency and the communication. But I'll focus on Coach Elliott. You know, for him, the facility is important. Obviously, coming from where he came from with a beautiful, grand facility. But there are so many other things that appeal to him about the University of Virginia. And so the addition of the facility is a bonus. That's going to be very helpful. But all of the reasons we all chose to be at Virginia are the reasons he chose to be at Virginia. And so the candidates didn't talk a lot about bricks and mortar.
Some people would argue that to compete for championships, you need flash. It maybe doesn't fit the vibe of Virginia. How do you strike that balance?
Yeah. So I won't, as not to single out any of facilities, I won't talk about what I think flash is, or could be considered flashy. For us, a state-of-the-art sports medicine facility within this building is pretty flashy. And I think that it's no secret when you look at what we have and you think about where we're going, it's all flashy, right? But we have tried to focus on the need and meeting the need of our student athletes, because what we think there are so many other things that are also important. Making sure we develop the whole person is important. Being a part of this, not just the UVA community, but the Charlottesville community. So there are lots of things that go along with the facility, and our players are so appreciative that we are getting this facility. They aren't looking for flash, right? They're looking for a facility that they know can help them compete for championships, and they'll have that.
We've got time for one or two more questions.
When you use the word efficiency, I'll give you one guess who I first thought of. That would be your former football coach.
Oh.
That was such a huge
Yes.
part. How much input did he have?
Yeah, I mean, he just left in November,
Yeah.
right? So so a lot in the schematic design and the conceptual, framework for it, a lot, because we were pretty far along. But there were still opportunities for Coach Elliott to give input, which he did, and we made those changes, those adjustments. And like I said, they weren't major, but they were important to him. And every coach, it doesn't matter what sport, they value efficiency. And so the more efficient you can make the lives of the coaches and the student athletes, the better.
We haven't seen the schematic. 2 stories, 3?
2 stories.
And
Yeah.
I do have some back numbers for you. I'll share afterwards. Okay, I'm going to go to the back for our last question here.
So I feel like you maybe answered this, but so I wondered what's the Power 5 football program, and then how will this new football operations center be able to better serve that program here?
Yeah. So how will the facility help us reach our goals of competing for championships as a Power 5 program?
Yes.
Yeah. In many, many ways. And so when you think about strength and I'll just give you one example. When you think about strength and conditioning, okay, and you think about 125, 130 student athletes, it's important to be able to have a structured strength and conditioning program for the entire team. And so if you're in a small facility and you don't have all of the equipment that you need in order to maximize the physical stature of the student athletes, then that's a disadvantage. So when you can go from a small weight room to an adequately sized weight room with the appropriate equipment, then you give those student athletes and their coaches the opportunity to maximize who they are and who they could be physically. And we know that this is obviously a very physical sport. So that's just one example, is strength and conditioning. And you can take that and apply it to nutrition, to sports medicine, to film rooms, to meeting spaces. So every area of what it takes to build a championship program, this facility enhances that for us to give our coaches and student athletes a chance to compete. Does that answer?
And I just also wondered what a Power 5 football program was.
Okay. So there are 65 Power 5 football programs, 66 with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is an independent. And so if you take the 5 major conferences, those are the 65 teams, and those teams are the ones that have the major TV contracts that allow for those conferences to distribute more revenue to those teams, all teams, not just football, all teams, to help with the entire department. And so that's a small number when you think about the entire world of NCAA sports. 65, 66 is a pretty small number. That help?
Yes.
Okay.
What did you do with,
Created title.
what did you do with the space that Bronco had asked be set aside for a calf roping arena?
For a what?
For a calf roping.
Okay, I put that word in.